all about, basically it's about how things work, is it? What's underneath the surface?
Yeah, so it's like watching a ballet and knowing about the choreography is what I think is the best analogy. So the source for that was a guy who'd managed about 5 or 6 5-star hotels in London. It was like his 25-year career, and all his best stories were put into one book. But at the same time, don't you remember there was that show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland?
I do.
Remember?
Yes,
with the ticking clock?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. So I just thought, in order to give the story some impetus, I put all his stories in 24 hours. But I think it's also from, that's a very bored childhood where you would sit around and make up stories of people who are sitting, one of my favourite things to do is sit in a cafe and try and work out who's who and what's going on. I mean, obviously, lying around a hotel swimming pool is always a really good fun one to do.
Oh yes, I love watching people. I love
Yes.
Who doesn't like their children very much?
Yes. Well, for you're seeing it from a psychological point of view now.
I am. And then I'm watching the mother who does way too much for her children,
Oh yes, the helicopter. Oh, I thought he was an amazing man. So he sent me to do my first ever book, which was published when I was 23, which was called The Taming of Eagles, and it was about the first 100 days of the collapse of communism. So he sent me to Moscow, and then I had to travel right the way across the whole of the old Soviet Union to Sakhalin, which is the island just above Japan, and it took 3.5 months.
Wow.
And that was what he made me do. And years later I said to him, why did you ask me to do that? Expecting some sort of fantastic plaudit, and he went, because you were keen and cheap.
Welcome to How to Have Extraordinary Relationships podcasts. Today I'm so excited to be with the author, journalist, writer, very well known for the Babylon series, Hotel Babylon, and lots of other books and novels. It's Imogen Edwards-Jones.
Hey, Lucy.
Now, I have to let you all know, Imogen and I have circled around each other, and I don't mean that like sharks, for a very long time. We both went to university together. Then we went to journalism college together, didn't we? And then didn't we have
Yes.
At City? Did we do? And then we ended up in journalism, and I'd see you pop into the Evening Standard wearing a very short skirt, putting vodka.
Always in a short skirt.
So we've known each other for quite a long time, but we haven't caught up for quite a long time. So I'm delighted that we're here today. So tell me what you've been up to. There's so many things I want to talk about. So where are you right now? I know you've had a long marriage to Kenton Allen, who has got some highfalutin. What is Kenton now? He's probably best known for Friday Night Dinner.
Yes. He does comedy, lots and lots and lots of comedy. He does Mitchell and Webb, Ludwig.
Rev. Oh, he did Ludwig. I love Ludwig.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yes, he's just done that.
Very funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is very funny, which is probably why we're still married after 27 years.
Yes. And you've got 2 children, and you wrote about having IVF. So you've got lots of strings to your bow, and I know that you've just finished writing a book.
I have. I finished it yesterday. I do quite a lot of ghosting now. Well, obviously, it's just, if you're a writer, you just have to write. And sometimes you don't have your own story to tell. And so sometimes you end up writing other people's stories. So I've just done 3 ghosting gigs back to back.
Oh, how does that work then? Does someone come to you and say, I've got a client who wants someone to write their biography or something? How does it work?
It depends. I mean, sometimes I get asked to do it because I know somebody and they said, would you write the story? But that's slightly different, because that's almost like sort of vanity publishing.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like some sort of, well-known person wants me to write their book, and then there is no contract, as it were. But these last 3 have all been contracted. So one of them is coming out in a couple of weeks, actually. It's which I can say this one because my name's on the cover. So I've just done Marilyn Monroe with James Patterson.
Oh my word!
Yes, that was really fun.
With James, as in the James Patterson.
The James Patterson, yes. Yes, I'm short chapters, is what he said to me. It's
Imogen's gotta be short chapters.
It's short chapter. My name's James Patton, and I'm short chapters. He is an extraordinary person to. But you see, each time you do any of these things, it's like a massive learning curve. Because also you've got to learn the style of the person whose book you're writing. So with James Patton, it was really interesting because he's obviously a very male writer,
Yes.
and he's a best-selling writer, and he's brilliant, obviously. But so every single verb he uses in the sentence is a big verb. They don't walk, they march. They don't speak, they shout or whatever. And he doesn't like an adverb. So there's very few adverbs. And I also learned fantastically. I mean, he is brilliant. It's amazing to learn from somebody who is the master. And so I did this whole great thing about Marilyn Monroe, and then blah, 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 and all about her childhood and all about where she was born and grew up. And he just put a line through the whole lot and went, backstory. I thought, oh my God.
Is it biography of Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
Well, then, isn't the backstory quite important?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, yes, it is.
I want to know. With my therapist hat on, with my journalist hat on, I want to know how she became, what made him. I always want to know what makes people people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, but he was technically correct because it was quite dreary. It was just like, oh, she couldn't afford a dress, and she's having to go and beg crusts from the bakery and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, as backstory, you can weave that in anyway. You don't need 25,000 words of backstory, which is what I had written, and it was just like, what? Anyway, very interesting. It's really interesting working with all these different people, and obviously as old journalists, we're nosy people.
Yeah,
and so you're very nosy, and so you're invited into other people's lives, which is interesting.
So, without wishing to sound really silly, why does James Patterson need a ghostwriter, given the fact he's a best-selling writer? Why does he need
Because he's got lots. Well, he just got a book out with Bill Clinton. He does lots of. I think they're called collabs.
Oh yeah, collabs.
He does a collab. So I'm one of his collabs. But I mean, I think he does about 7 or 8 books a year. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Andy Warhol's Factory, but in a.
Yes. Yeah.
So, how do you manage working with lots of different people? I mean, you're taking on people's personalities and egos and writing styles. How have you managed that?
I think you have to be as sort of like as much of a shadow. I mean, you're called a ghost, and that is the reason, because nobody really wants to know about you. So it's really interesting to sit in a room, and after 5 months of being with somebody, I know everything about them there is to know, and they know almost nothing.
Oh, and it's like being a therapist, actually.
Slightly, yes, yeah, and I very like being a therapist, actually, and I mean, the other day I met somebody who I've just written a book for, and they didn't recognise me. I just thought, wow, okay, I spent months with you.
That's extraordinary. They said, "Hi, pleased to meet you." And you're like, "It's me.
It's me."
You.
But also, I think you become like someone's sort of dirty secret, obviously, because at the end of the day, apart from James, obviously, because I'm on the cover, but at the end of the day, they have to go out and promote it as theirs. So in the end, they have to believe that it's theirs. Otherwise, they can't promote it, I think.
So some people very generously do give credit to.
Yes.
Person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a sort of, is there a league of ghostwriters? Because is there a sort of thing about, well, you got to do Prince Harry?
Oh, totally. Right. Yes. Oh my God, yes. I've got a girlfriend who is a brilliant ghostwriter, and she does mostly all the drug addicting pop stars. That's her forte. She's brilliant at that. Yes, well, I mean, the guy who did Prince Harry won the Pulitzer Prize because he did Agassiz book before.
Yeah.
It's called Open, I think it's called, which is a work of genius, actually.
Is it? Well, I haven't read that. Andre Agassi's biography.
Yes. And I think he won the Pulitzer Prize for that biography. I may be wrong, but I think that's right. And he's an outstandingly brilliant writer.
So part of it is you've got to be a good writer, yeah? You've got to be able to tell a story.
Yes. Listen.
Yeah. So if you're writing a biography of someone, you need to then shape it, don't you? You need to shape their life into something that we're interested in.
Yes. So I would normally open with the juicy bit.
Yeah,
you would normally open with, the worst bit, the worst day that somebody has, I think. Then you're in, aren't you?
Yes.
And then you can go back to the backstory. No.
But do you enjoy doing it? Do you enjoy doing it?
I do enjoy doing it. Well, it's like sort of superannuated journalism, isn't it? I mean, so those Babylon books that I wrote originally, they were essentially journalism. They were all the best stories that you could get from that sort of particular, it was like the whole idea was sitting next to somebody on a plane and they were telling you their best stories, over a glass of, vodka or whatever.
And was the first one Hotel Babylon?
Yes, yeah, Hotel Babylon. Yeah.
These were all about, basically it's about how things work, is it? What's underneath the surface?
Yeah, so it's like watching a ballet and knowing about the choreography is what I think is the best analogy. So the source for that was a guy who'd managed, about 5 or 6 5-star hotels in London. It was like his 25-year career, and all his best stories were put into one book. But at the same time, I don't even remember, there was that show 24 with Kiefer Sutherland.
I do.
Remember? Yes, with the ticking clock.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought, in order to give the story some impetus, I put all his stories in 24 hours. So it had the ticking clock of the show 24. I mean, that's what was in my mind, because you've got to have some sort of forward motion to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
And also, a hotel does brilliantly divide itself up into hours of the day.
Yes.
Because it's got its own rhythm, which I've always thought was really interesting. I mean, sort of weird things like people die at 3 o'clock in the morning, mostly. Yeah.
How weird. So it's always when there's a skeleton staff, someone dies.
Yeah, always, yeah. And, one of my favourite characters in that book was a guy called the Dressing Gown Man, who's, as you can imagine, you're on reception and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're thinking, oh, great. I'm just thinking for a quiet evening, I'm just going to sit here, maybe sneak a little read of my book or whatever. And then there's always some guy who's got jet lag. He comes down the stairs in his dressing gown, probably with no pants on, and wants to have a chat.
Oh, God.
And that's when your heart sinks and you think, oh, God, not the Dressing Gown Man. So there were characters like that, which I loved. That's what made it, for me, it's so nice to do.
And it did really well, didn't it? I mean, it spawned a whole set after Fashion Babylon, Wedding, Hospital.
Yes. Yeah, and the TV show with the lovely Dexter Fletcher, who was gorgeous in it, and Max Beasley and Tamsin Outhwaite.
Yes, that's right. And Restaurant you did. Which
I did all of them.
Which ones did people like the most? Which were the ones that people said, oh, I loved that one?
Air Babylon, obviously, because people really secretly hate flying.
Yeah.
And it was basically all your neuroses writ large in one book. I mean, terrible stories about how people die on an aeroplane, and what the staff do is they put the mask over the face and put a blanket on it so nobody knows it's dead, the person's dead. And there was the Singapore Airlines the other day, they opened up the longest flight, which I think is from something like Singapore to Los Angeles or somewhere. It's the longest flight, like 19 hours. And they actually had to put a corpse cupboard in the aeroplane.
So someone's bound to die on a 19-hour flight.
Eventually, yes. I mean, law of averages decrees that someone will eventually die on the flight, and then you can't have the dead body sitting around for hours.
God, and then is it all about sort of do pilots get off with all the air stewards?
Lots of sex, lots of alcohol. There was a cocktail I remember called the Bus, which was what they used to drink on the bus as soon, because obviously as soon as they land, they're free more or less,
Yeah.
and they would get absolutely wazzocked between the aeroplane and the airport. But I mean, things have changed obviously since. Since 9/11 and since the shoe bomber and all that stuff, security is very different. And I think also because everything's computerized now, the idea of nicking alcohol off the little trolley was much easier in those days. I mean, you go to air hostesses' houses, which I did to interview them, and there'd be thousands of miniatures everywhere because they would just pocket them all. But I think now it's much more difficult to be naughty.
And did they all just basically hate the passengers? Do they all just
totally hate the passengers? Yes.
They were really annoying and irritating, banging on about, can I move seats? And have you got a J2O that isn't that flavour?
Oh God! Also, obviously, because everyone because we all think that we're individuals, but actually we're not. We're just of a type. So there'd be like the princess girls. You always bring a pillow and a little pashmina. And they're all, I mean, you think you're being really individual and no, you're not. So they used to hate them. There were also all the men who used to wake up in the morning after a long haul flight with erections. The morning glory.
That is so funny.
And they go, there's an erection, seat 8A, big one.
There's two people in business that get pissed.
And go and have a shag, yeah.
Go and have a shag and then get discovered or whatever. There's always a couple of
always. But people always think it's weird that you think you're invisible when you're on an aeroplane or you're going to a hotel but they're watching you all the time. So you think you're getting away with stuff and you're just not. Because they've seen it all before.
You're pocketing the breakfast rolls at the breakfast buffet.
Yeah.
They're like, another.
Here we go again. Not somebody, having 3 breakfasts, or they can see how miserable you are, or how drunk you were the night before, or people you would think that they're not noticing anything, but they notice absolutely everything. So because, they're sober and awake.
You really enjoy doing that is a combination, is it, writing and journalism? It's your
yes,
likes to find stuff out.
Yes, I think just being nosy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been noted, but lots of people aren't nosy. I'm fascinated with clients sometimes, with couples. I'm very fascinated by how little they know about each other sometimes.
How weird.
Yeah, but they're not curious. You think because you're a writer and a journalist that everyone's curious about things, and lots of people aren't that curious at all. It's fascinating.
It is actually fascinating, yes. So, but I think it's also from that's a very bored childhood where you would sit around and make up stories of people who are sitting, I mean, one of my favourite things to do is sit in a cafe and try and work out who's who and what's going on. I mean, obviously, or lying around a hotel swimming pool is always a really good fun one to do.
Oh yes, I love watching people. I love who doesn't like their children very much.
Yes. Well, you're seeing it from a psychological point of view now as well.
And then I'm watching the mother who does way too much for her children,
Oh yes, the helicopter
parents. So they're going to get to the water, and she's off getting the armbands, and they're about 19. So you've done that, but you've also got a relationship with Russia.
Yes.
How? Because you studied Russian at university, which I'd forgotten.
Yes, yeah. No, I went to Bristol with you, and I was going to do Spanish and Portuguese, and then I read Crime and Punishment in the summer holidays, which is one of the best novels ever written. And I suddenly thought, why would I spend 4 years not reading these brilliant books?
Yeah.
That's not to say that Portuguese and Spanish literature is not great, but the Russian canon is just extraordinary. And so I started Russian from scratch when I arrived at Bristol, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. And it's just terribly difficult now because obviously it's like being in love with the wrong boyfriend. Because obviously I mean, but when I was there, also I went to a university in Kiev, so which was still. I'm so old. It was still part of the Soviet Union. So when I lived in Ukraine, it was still part of the Soviet Union, and it was under prohibition. So there was no alcohol, but that's obviously not true. There was lots of alcohol. So you go around Kiev, and Kiev is supposed to be saying that, and there'd be no sugar and no sweets because everyone had nicked the sugar and the sweets to brew into alcohol. It was just a mad, magical, beautiful place where, life and death. It was a very vital country because the stakes are so high. Because life expectancy when I was there, I think it was about 42 or something.
Why was it so low?
But because they just, terrible pollution, terrible alcohol abuse, terrible cigarettes. Papyrosi that had no filter. It was tough. Life was really tough, and that takes its toll. I mean, they're all beautiful when they're young, and then over the age of 30, they all look terrible. The shampoo's bad, the soap's bad. I mean,
yes.
It's a really tough place, but I loved it because it was the opposite of being sort of a spoilt Westerner. I just felt very alive when I was there.
Did you?
And had the most amazing time.
University, because you do your year out there, did you?
And Kiev.
Yes. Why did you choose there rather than like Moscow?
I didn't choose there. I was the worst. I was the worst in class. I was bottom of everything. And as punishment, I was sent to Ukraine because obviously the really glamorous, clever students all went to Moscow or Leningrad, I think it was still then, St. Petersburg. And there's a place called Voronezh where a whole load of other people went, which was that proper sort of it. But, the real dregs, i.e. me, went to Kiev. But it was, Kiev was Ukraine was so beautiful. It is so beautiful. It's a beautiful country. And then we ran away and went to Odessa. And because at that point, we had minders and people like that who were trying to keep an eye on us. So I remember getting dressed up in sort of Ukrainian clothes and trying not to speak very much because obviously my Russian was rubbish. And we ran away to Odessa for the weekend, which was just beautiful. It was amazing, wild times. It was good fun.
You felt very alive there.
Oh, totally, yes. Well, I just think, I mean, if you ever spend any time with those sort of that. In Russia or Ukraine, I mean, they will drink too much, laugh, cry, dance, fall asleep, wake up again. I mean, it's just the full gamut of emotions. They are the opposite of the uptight English people. And I had quite a traditional, quite uptight English upbringing, and so I think that was the reason why I fell in love with it so much. And then in 1991-92, there was this whole of the Soviet Union collapsed. And if you remember Stuart Stephen, he was the editor of the Mail on Sunday.
Of course I do, because it was his fridge you were putting the vodka jellies in.
Totally.
And I remember him saying to me, I'm going to get Imogen to come and bend down in her shorts. I mean, now he'd be out in his ear with a Me Too,
I know. I
not with us anymore, Stuart. I actually liked him I liked him.
Oh, I thought he was an amazing man. So he sent me to do my first ever book, which was published when I was 23, which was called The Taming of Eagles, and it was about the first 100 days of the collapse of communism. So he sent me to Moscow, and then I had to travel right the way across the whole of the old Soviet Union to Sakhalin, which is the island just above Japan, and it took 3.5 months.
Wow.
And that was what he made me do. And years later, I said to him, why did you ask me to do that? Expecting some sort of fantastic plaudit. And he went, because you were keen and cheap.
What, and you were reporting back?
Yeah. Well, that's when I was made a Cossack. So I was made a Cossack.
What does it mean to be made a Cossack?
Oh my God. So I had this, so I was in Rostov-on-Don, which is right on the border now with Ukraine. And that's where the Don Cossacks are, hugely sort of very famous tribe of warriors, effectively. And the head of the Cossack is called the Ataman. And they love speeches. So I knew I was going to have lunch with the Cossacks in this sort of cave, and there were about 70 of them and me. They're all men, 70 of them and me. So I thought, I know I'll have to make a speech. So I learnt the night before this quote, which I can't remember now, from Sholokov, which is called "Quiet flows the dawn," and in English it says, "Give the Cossacks back their land, and they will feed Russia for eternity," which is one of their big rallying cries. So they. As I said this, there was this huge roar. We were all very drunk, obviously. This huge roar, and they picked me up and pulled me out of this cave like this on their shoulders, and to the Don, which was frozen at the time, and we all went skidding around on the frozen Don River. And then the chief ataman, he's got this amazing handlebar moustache and extraordinary, said, "Come back to my office," and he gave me this passport, and which I thought was a load of old rubbish. But a friend, the photographer who was also with me, was also given a passport, and he was arrested about 5 years later in St. Petersburg at something, and he flashed this passport, and they went, "Oh no, you're a Cossack, you can go."
Wow.
Yeah. Quite fun. Probably here, actually.
You are a Cossack, an honorary Cossack.
Yeah.
Your relationship with Russia, how does that feel now? Because obviously, as you said, it's like being in love with the wrong boyfriend.
Oh. Well, I have to say, when Putin took Crimea in 2014, that was really upsetting. But the invasion, whatever, 3 years ago, absolutely floored me. I just couldn't cope with it. I mean, a lot of my friends no longer live there anymore. They were all artists and painters, and they now live in places like Berlin and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them are no longer alive. But it's just terrible to see what's happening. And I just find it... Also, I don't want to speak Russian anymore. I don't want to... I mean, the last time I was there, I took a tour group around St. Petersburg, because I'd written that book about Rasputin called The Witches of St. Petersburg, and I did a tour showing people around. And that was amazing. It was just wonderful and beautiful. And the architecture's incredible, and the people are extraordinary. But now you kind of just don't want to speak. I don't want to speak Russian. I don't want to hang out with Russians. It's irrational, I know, but I can't control it. It's really upsetting.
Had a huge effect on you.
Yeah, really, really, really terrible. And I sort of don't really want to go back. And also, I can't understand why Putin is still there. I just don't understand.
Yes.
But I mean, they've never been they're like a strong leader, the Russians. That's their forte. And it takes a lot for them to rebel. But I keep hoping they will, but they don't seem to be.
So I know this is a big question you probably can't answer. I was very interested because I then watched Chernobyl, which has Jared Harris.
Yes.
And there's a bit where the people go in knowing that they're going to die, and they do it for Russia.
Yeah. That's very Russian.
Which is that you sacrifice yourself for the greater good. True.
And they had this weird thing, which is a word called byt, which basically means your fate. Okay. So they are a very passive sort of country. So if you're in terms of language, the most important things they are in the dative tense. So I don't know if you understand what that means. So it's like it's cold to me. It is hungry to me.
Oh, I see.
So they are passive, even in the most obviously in Russian, being cold and hungry are the most important things. So everything happens to me. So you're a passive, dative person. And so I think that you're quite right, that extraordinary bit of footage when they know they're all going to die.
And they don't
do it anyway.
Well, no, I'm not. Yeah, they don't say, no, I'm not going to go in and sort out the reactor, mate. They feel that is their. I felt, and of course it's a bit of fiction, that it's a sort of thing about the motherland. Attachment to the motherland.
Yeah. Also, they're not used to the selfish sort of individualism that we have. There's. I mean, I don't think I've ever met a sort of Russian narcissist. Well, apart from Rasputin, obviously, but do you know what I mean? They're all they don't.
Well, apart from
Apart from Rasputin, Stalin, yeah, whatever.
all those people.
Apart from all of them, but you know, in general, that sort of narcissism doesn't really exist.
They don't have the cult of the eye, as it were.
No, no, yeah, they're mostly dative to me.
Fascinating.
Yeah, well, so that's why I think they like a strong leader, and that's where there is the notion of self-sacrifice is much more resonant in their culture than it is in ours. I mean, even on all the literature that you read out of there, that's what it's all about. So I think that documentary that you saw was absolutely extraordinary on Chernobyl.
Yes, it was extraordinary.
Yeah. So I went to Kiev 2 years after Chernobyl, and it's right next door. So you know what we were told? They went, don't eat the mushrooms and don't eat the potatoes. Well, obviously, all you get is mushrooms and potatoes. So I've had my thyroid out. I got thyroid cancer.
What?
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether it was because I spent all that time there straight after Chernobyl, but I mean, you know, thyroid cancer is one of the first ones that you're supposed to get.
How? So yeah. How did you know you had thyroid? Your thyroid's here in your neck.
Yeah, can you see? I've got the scar here.
So how do you not have a thyroid?
I've got half a thyroid, so I have to take thyroxine to make me function. But yes, I've got half a thyroid.
Oh my God! And so how did you know you had thyroid cancer?
I had a great big lump on my neck.
Oh, I'm sure it's from eating the mushrooms and the potatoes.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
They were radioactive. I mean,
of course they were. Yeah.
Because I went to the Wonder Room in St. Petersburg, which is a great, crazy museum. Have you been there? It's got allegedly got
Rasputin's penis.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's also got, like, because he was a mad experimenter, wasn't he? It's got like cows with 3 heads and babies with 6 legs.
Yes, conjoined cows, haven't they got? Yes.
It's a whole set of
extraordinary... Yeah, it's Museum of Curiosities, I think it's called, isn't it?
Curiosities, yeah, extraordinary things. But I'm wondering, you know, thinking about Chernobyl, I think there were sort of dogs growing 2 heads and 6 legs and things because of that.
Well, when I wrote the book, I went to a hospital for babies after Chernobyl, and there were all these babies born with terrible mutations in this hospital that I went to, which was like, I think bizarrely it was called Hospital Number 13, and it was just outside Kiev, and it was their hospital where all the unwell children were after the explosion. Yeah, really awful actually.
So you've done a lot of reporting from there, and you've written books there. I do also remember, weren't you sent to Los Angeles to go and have an early adoption process?
To become a star.
Become a star, yeah, I do.
That was so funny. Yeah, I ended up on the Geraldo show. Do you remember that too?
Geraldo
show, yeah.
Geraldo, yes, I do.
Yeah, Geraldo show. In a $7,000 python skin jacket. Why? I don't know. But there's a Hollywood star maker, a guy called Jay Bernstein, who discovered Farrah Fawcett 1,000 years ago. This is how old we are, Farrah Fawcett. Anyway, so Mel Brooks introduced me to him. How I got Mel Brooks' telephone number, I don't know. Anyway, Mel Brooks introduced, and he used me as a sort of project as to if he could make me into a star. So I was on the show, and he kept saying, my forehead is too big, so I need to have a fringe. And or bangs, whatever they call them. Yeah, she needs bangs. And then I think he said at one point I should wear an underwired bra because my boobs were too droopy, and blah blah blah. And I'm in this python skin jacket, basically being used as a model to see if to show, you know, how you could be made over into. No, he gave up on me. No, but when I came back to the UK, I got when I came back to the UK, I was interviewed on Wogan.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine? I mean, that was the sort of the apex, wasn't it?
So Wogan was asking you to talk about, well, what is it like to
being a star, and yes, and you know, what did you do, and yeah, I mean, yeah. So I was on the Wogan show, aged whatever, 22 or something.
Then you were being a star. Now you're saying as a ghostwriter, you feel, the ghostwriter takes a back seat.
Yes. I think that's the sort of the thrusting nature of youth, isn't it? I'm very different from what I was like in my 20s.
Yes.
I mean, aren't you?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, really?
Well, I think because I have 4 children, I think now that my youngest got to 18, I think I've reverted to being about 28. I don't know what I was. I mean, I don't. I mean, I think the essence of me is probably still the same as it was. Would I do what I was doing back then? No, probably not.
Well, I was hugely ambitious.
Yes, you were very ambitious.
Very, very, very ambitious.
But I say that as if it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. But I do remember women particularly being criticised for being ambitious.
Yeah, yeah. Would you remember that brilliant book that Julie Burchill wrote, Ambition?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an ugly word. I was hugely ambitious, but also I think because I wasn't born in London, I was born in the provinces. I was born just outside Birmingham. I was a girl from the countryside, brought up in the middle of nowhere. I just wanted it all because I remember my first ever trip to London just thinking, I can't believe this place exists. It's so exciting. It was just vital. And I think because of social media and all this hyperconnectivity that we all have, you forget what it was like being 17 and living in the middle of nowhere. I mean, terrible, just burning with fury that I just wanted to get out and do something.
But there was nothing where you lived, so you were sort of sitting in the countryside looking at sheep.
Yeah, and I couldn't even walk to the pub. There wasn't even a pub. No, it's nothing. So I think that sort of energy that was like, I was like a sort of pressure cooker. And when I arrived, and also because you forget that, when you and I arrived at university, we didn't know anybody.
Yeah, I think about that now and I think, how strange is that?
Yeah. I didn't have any friends.
Yeah, it's quite.
I knew a couple of people, but that was it. I didn't know anybody. Whereas, my daughter now has got her telephone, and so she's got Snapchats of everybody. It doesn't really matter where you are anymore. You can still be connected. But for us, it was absolutely vital that you met that person in that pub at that time, because that was the only chance that those two souls would collide.
No, that's right. I think about it now when children struggle to go to university, and I think, how did we? My mother just dropped me off in Bristol and left, and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know Bristol. I had no idea where I was. I knew absolutely nobody.
No, but you would wander lonely as a cloud, sort of across the downs, thinking, "Wow, I think it might be down here somewhere." Didn't you have a map?
No, I know.
No idea where you were going. The idea of finding out that the number 52 took you to Halls. I mean, it would take you about 5 days to find that out.
But also, it was that thing of kind of establishing a life, and friendship groups, and then all of that went because your friends went other places.
Yes.
And you had to start all over again.
Yes. Yeah. Do you remember that guy Rob Penn who became a writer?
Rob Penn.
And do you remember Rob Penn? He became a writer. He said once that mates always eventually turn up somewhere, and that is true. You can be walking down a road, and there is some sort of serendipity that you will bump into somebody.
Yes,
you're on the same sort of wave. But I think it's. I think that's where all that energy came from. Was just sort of years of sitting, looking at daisies.
Yes, and wanting to do something. So I remember, I think, when you met Kenton, not the day you met Kenton, but I remember being at a party in, I think, Portobello Road or something in London. And you said, "Oh, I've met this man."
Oh, did I?
I really like him. And it was Kenton.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, he saw me in a magazine and cut me out.
Not kind of a magazine.
No. Not one of those magazines. He saw me in ES magazine, Evening Standard magazine, cut me out and put me on his notice board.
That's so funny,
isn't it? It's like. Do you remember that? What's that book called, The Secret? It was almost like he was manifesting.
No, that's the secret.
Yes.
Yes. He thought, I want to meet someone like that. Actually,
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. I want to meet that. Yeah.
And
So
then you
yeah, you did.
together for a long time. What's the secret of your long, happy marriage?
Oh, is it happy? No, it is. It's quite fun. He makes me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I think we like the same things. We find the same things funny.
Yeah.
And we both work hard. So I think that's also the case, that he just makes me laugh. And I think that we play together. So we do drink wine together, and we do, there's no secrets.
Yeah.
So if I say, oh God, I've got to go and do this, will you meet me later? Do you know what I mean? He just knows exactly what's happening. And I don't think I've ever really lied to him, ever. There's no point.
No, great. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't have to really worry about stuff. But it doesn't really matter what you're being honest about. Just you don't need to worry about things.
Yeah. So I think, because some people, they say, oh God, I can't go out because my wife doesn't like me drinking too much wine, or my wife doesn't. Just what? That already is like a red flag.
A big red flag.
Yeah. Or if you start having to pretend that you're somewhere else.
No, it's a red flag. And then people say, I can't believe so-and-so lied to me. I'm like, well,
Yes.
of course they've lied to you, because what do you think was going to happen? It's like saying to alcoholics, you're not allowed to drink, and then being surprised when it turns out they've got a bottle of vodka in their pocket.
Totally, yeah. So I think honesty and truthfulness and making each other laugh, I think that's it.
Yes. Honesty, truthfulness, and you make each other laugh, and you've got 2 children.
2, yeah.
And I know
yes, after all that IVF, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It must have been quite a grueling journey.
That was absolutely brutal. I also think because we went through that as well, together, that was an incredibly bonding experience, because it was really, really, really upsetting and difficult. And I do remember right at the very end, I had this sharps box. I had over 1,000 injections for my daughter. I remember taking this sharps box to the hospital to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I handed it over, and I collapsed on the floor and burst into tears. And it was like this sort of concrete coat had come off me. And I had no idea that I was holding on to so much. And the symbolic gesture of handing over all the needles was like, it was very, very, very punchy.
Do you look at her now and think it was 1,000 needles, my love?
Oh, that's what I always think, yes. And then I think, well, she's not worth it at all. God's sake.
It took me 1,000 needles to get.
1,000 needles. But also nobody wants to hear what I went through for you. Literally couldn't care.
Of course they don't.
Have you got 20 quid? I need to go.
Yeah, they're like, shut up, stop being so boring. Oh, so you've got the Marilyn Monroe book. Where can people find you? If people want to find out more about you and your book.
I've got my website, but it's rubbish, but it gets there. ImogenEdwards-Jones.com. And I've got all my books on Amazon, I think. 24 of them.
So that's where people will find you.
Yes.
ImogenEdwards.com.
Yes, I would show you my Marilyn book, but they haven't actually even sent it to me.
So that's going to be out. That'll be out by the time the podcast comes out.
Yeah, no, it's out in a couple of weeks, actually.
It's all about Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, about her life story, but not with backstory.
And we have an endless fascination with her, so that's great.
Yes, she was. Yeah, I think she's the worst story that I found about Marilyn Monroe was, that she was obviously used and abused by the patriarchy. But the last bit was, so she's buried in Los Angeles, and next door to her, Hugh Hefner paid extra money for the grave next door to her, so that he could lie next to Marilyn for eternity. Can you imagine? So, leave her alone.
Poor woman.
Don't you think?
Like the Hef, whatever it's called, right next to her.
Hugh Hefner next to you. It's like a box in the wall. It's those they are what are they called? When they're it's not actual graves, but it's It's boxes in the wall.
I got that up the other day.
It's too hot. I can't think.
I can't remember what they're called. Ossuary.
A what?
This is an ossuary.
Oh, probably. I don't know. Anyway, he's right next door to her.
Good.
It's just really depressing. That's the one thing that just really depressed me about it all. I just thought, you know, even in death, she's still being sex pestered by somebody.
Sex pestered.
Yeah.
Okay, you can read all about it in the book.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was lovely to see you again, and I feel like I've had a lovely catch up, and you've told us lots of interesting things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my lovely. Well, I hope you're going to see you very soon.